Welcome to Social Selling with AI. I'm Alexander Lowe, Head of Enterprise Strategy and Operations at Lately. And for the next 20 minutes or so, I'll be your guide through what is social selling and then how artificial intelligence can help you drive this more effectively. First and foremost, why is it absolutely critical to build this into your strategy? I mean, social selling in simple terms is just sales and marketing for the 21st century. It's around how do you build social channels into your go-to-market. Everything that you do, from your sales, your marketing, recruitment, brand, purpose, and so on. As we move out of this world we find ourselves and move into more and more virtual interactions, digital channels are going to become ever more important in everything that you do. A lot of all of this, though, is shifting mindset. What the last 12 months has proven to a lot of industries, a lot of organizations, that ways of doing things that we thought couldn't be done can be done in this virtual environment. And more importantly, the way that the buyer's mindset has changed is now fundamentally shift. They want to change the way that they buy. They want to change the way that you engage with them. Therefore, we have to start shifting maybe from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset around trying different things in different ways to make sure we're achieving the outcomes we're trying to achieve. Also, it's to note, and this is pre-COVID, is that digital channels are becoming ever more important, and they were even before this. As we can see from this Gartner research, 83% of the customers access digital even late in the buying stages. So you can still influence buying processes and buying behaviors late in that buying stage. And the key point is around giving customers an entry point on their own terms. And that's the beauty of social media. Every single employee you have, each one of you, your LinkedIn profile, Twitter profile, Facebook if it's corporate, Instagram if it's corporate, TikTok even if it's corporate, can be that entry point for a conversation start, for a sign up to a webinar, download this white paper, but it's on the terms of the individual, not necessarily when you dictate to them that they have to do something. What we also need to start considering is this concept of the experience. You may have seen the narrative starting to come through now, referring to the experience economy. And I'd like you just to reflect for a moment on, think about what is a really good buying experience or digital experience that you have had, ideally in the business world, but just business to business and business to consumer is now blurring. And we as consumers have an expectation that when we engage with a brand, there's a certain level of things that should just work. It should be able to be done in 2 clicks. Maybe it should be app driven. Certainly needs to work on mobile. I want to be able to get through to a human being when I need to get through to a human being. So we are now starting to benchmark our experiences, or the best experiences that we have. Then when we meet somebody else in that same industry and that experience is not met, that is going to start to work against you and your brand, versus those organizations that are starting to understand this and bring this to bear more effectively. But fundamentally, we need to focus on outcomes in terms of what are we actually trying to achieve. So if I turn back the clock to when I was in the world of recruitment, and what was I trying to do? I was trying to generate sales meetings, business meetings with HR leads and sales leads to sell why they should work with Michael Page International and myself to do their recruitment. How did I do that? Cold calling was pretty much the only thing I could do. Email marketing, big brand advertising. So I haven't heard of Alex Lowe, but I've heard of Michael Page International. So I'll give this person another 30 seconds on the phone. Fast forward to today, outcome remains exactly the same. Nothing has fundamentally changed in that, in terms of the outcome we're still trying to achieve is generate business meetings with business leaders like yourselves to help you understand how you can build artificial intelligence into your social media go-to-market strategies, be it for employee advocacy, social selling, and so on. However, I'm not doing this via cold calling. I'm doing this via social outreach, leveraging networks, referral networks, content creation, and so on. So whilst the outcome remains fundamentally the same, it's the digitization of the sales and marketing process which is fundamentally transformed to enable you to get to that same outcome. We've all seen in terms of the press that the pandemic has, has accelerated 5 years worth of digital transformation within the space of in 12 months. And this is only set to increase based on the foundation that has been created. So don't lose sight of the outcomes of what we're trying to achieve, because they remain the same. It's the process which is fundamentally transformed to get to that same outcome. And just some stats in terms of digital, where we are the world. The latest count of January of this year, you can see the numbers speak for themselves. Social and digital is baked into everyday life that we have. 4 generations of buyer, if you will, employee on social and digital. 5th one, generation alpha, now starting to come online. Just so 11 to 13-year-olds are kind of generation alpha at the moment. So it's going to be a really interesting dynamic. The next 5 to 10 years is to, as the older generation start to retire and move away from online in terms of a business context, this whole next raft of generation coming through, they behave very, very differently in terms of how social and digital is used. And we need to be cognizant of that and start to prepare for that now, so we're ready for when they come online. Also, of course, our buying behaviors have changed. We see the numbers here from Gartner. The last 12 months has proven to buyers that actually this way of buying is better. This is the way I prefer it. Therefore, I want my suppliers, I want people that are going to sell to me to come to where I am. Go to where your customer is, not where they have been. Also, that going back to that change in demographic of buyer, you see here the millennial buyer, 1 in 3 of them don't actually want to talk to a salesperson. They don't actually want a salesperson in the process at all. So if that is true and going to continue, how do we then start to make sure that we are enabling our sellers to sell in a way that our buyers want to buy? Also, in terms of our risk tolerance is starting to increase in terms of what we're prepared to do online. We can see here this research from McKinsey, December 2020. They surveyed 3,626 buyers of product and services across the B2B spectrum, and 15% are happy to spend over $1 million in a virtual end-to-end environment. That's $1 million of product or service without actually physically meeting a human being. So this will be done either in this environment through virtual calls or through that end-to-end self-service environment. This is therefore where it's absolutely critical that you leverage your content and your digital insights to be visible. And if we're to believe the Forrester research, then now not only do our buyers want to buy differently, not only do they not necessarily want to engage with salespeople, but now they can start to make decisions based on digital content that they can find themselves online, referrals they get, trusted sources of information. They can start to, finalize vendor lists purely on this. If you're not understanding this, if you're not, back to that point, going to where your customers are rather than they've been versus your competition, you'll start to wonder why you're not being invited to pitch. You'll start to wonder why your revenue is starting to slide. So now it's absolutely critical that we start to understand how can we start to leverage this at scale? How can I start to leverage this at scale? However, keep it human and not look automated and not look like it's just the corporate machine telling their employees just to push content. And this is where it's critical that we start to think about how we can give your employees a voice. This is employee advocacy, if you will, but fundamentally, people engage with people, they don't engage with companies. So your employees' networks are far more likely to drive engagement through their networks than necessarily through the corporate network. The corporate network is important, don't get me wrong, but the employee network can be even more powerful. And this is the reason why this is important, because this is how we operate as human beings. It's as much around telling each other what we think, who we like, who we don't like, who do you recommend to do X, Y, Z. So how do we start to bring this to life? The way that you can consider it is that I've just got Microsoft here as an example, is that LinkedIn says that most people have 500 connections. So if we can consider here that Microsoft has got 196,000 employees. So each of those employees has around 500 connections. If we do 196,000 times 500, you get to 98 million. So yes, they've got 13, close to 14 million followers on their corporate page, but they've actually got an employee network of 98 million. Imagine if, as an organization, we're able to activate that voice, whether you're a small organization or a large organization. If you can start to bring to bear every single employee voice that you've got and leverage their network of conversation, how immensely powerful that would be to help you move your brand, your product, your service, your purpose from not only sales and marketing, but also from a recruitment perspective, from positioning your purpose in life and society as to what you stand for as an organization. So start to give some consideration more of your employee network over and above necessarily the followers at a corporate level. Because this is fundamentally what happens on a social media platform, whether it's LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, doesn't matter. Each one of those dots is you. Each one of those dots could be your LinkedIn profile, could be your Twitter profile, could be the corporate profile, but primarily think of it in terms of these are all employees, and each one is an active employee bouncing around the network. So you can be global 24/7 should you choose to. Even if you're a small business, you can still have a global voice very, very easily by activating the network of your own network, of course, and the network of your employees. The key thing in all of this, and certainly this is what we are seeing on LinkedIn, actually conversation is becoming far more powerful. Starting conversations with people, starting that narrative, liking and commenting on people's posts is a really, really, really powerful way to start to drive that visibility. But also you do need yourself content to create conversation. So yes, be part of the conversation, but we also want you and your employees to be able to create content and conversation. And we all know that time is the one thing that people have the least of. Content creation is the hardest thing for people. Getting that, once that content has been created, how do I get it to work much harder for me in a way that is still authentic and human, but doesn't lose sight of what we're trying to achieve in terms of that overall outcome, but also doesn't just look like automated corporate spam. And this is fundamentally where artificial intelligence is starting to change the game in this and revolutionize how organizations can start to look and make their content work much harder. What we need to start thinking about is, how do we do this? So here at Lately, this is what we do. So this is an article from the Think Global conference. I take the URL and I put this into our generator. What the generator is then doing is reading through the text. I can then decide whether I have long form, short form, medium length posts. I can pre-append it with hashtags and conversation. You'll see the social media channels to the left, which I can then attach this to. This is happening in real time. So what the generator is now doing is doing a number of things. It's going through that text and looking to, if you will, atomize the content and pull out unique pieces of content to turn into a social media post. What the AI is also doing is then looking at the keywords I have in my system, which it has suggested to me are the best words for the post. And then we'll start to put those into the post, because it knows that that type of word and content generates the best likes and comments across Twitter, Facebook, across corporate channels on corporate channels on LinkedIn. And we can see here it is generated 15 social media posts in the time that I've spoken to you. That would take me probably the best part of half an hour to do that if I was doing that manually. So what this is now doing is starting to A, save you time, but B, start to actually look at what type of social media posts are going to be most effective from the content that you have created. You can also do this for video. So with regards to that, then from the back of that, this is the back end. So the green is the words I have that it's looking for. The blue are the words that the AI is suggesting that we should put into the content algorithm, if you will, because it goes, hey, these words get good engagement. These words create good impressions. You may want to add this into your sort of AI dictionary, if you will, so that it will continue to look and learn. You can also put in your own brand guidelines, your own branding in terms of language that you want to use to make sure the image is the right narrative and the right content is being pulled through. You can then start to deliver this at scale. As I said, we can also then start to do this with video. The key thing around video is you want to chop it up into short form content. So again, an example here. This is live on my Twitter profile if you want to go and see it.
They doubled the revenue from 40 million to 80 million within 4.5 months. In 4.5 months.
So this was a half-hour vlog that I did with this gentleman, Rob. I then put this through the Lately engine. Lately transcribes the video. I edit the transcription. It then starts to build out the social media post, much like it did on that previous slide. What it also then does, it starts to edit and clip and match the video or the audio to the particular piece of text. I then create maybe 100 social media posts from a half an hour clip. I can then decide which ones I want to distribute across which platforms, and then I let the system continue to learn for me. So this is how we can then start to use artificial intelligence to start to A, save you time, B, start to learn what content is working, but C, more importantly, get your content to work much harder for you, create much more visibility for you at scale, back to that Forrester piece around digital insights and being invisible. But the key thing in all of this, it doesn't look automated. It remains that human, in my case, authentic voice of my written narrative, of my spoken word, if you will, that's turned into text. The key thing there, this is all one part of the puzzle, is that we need to understand the data in terms of what I'm actually doing. Is it working? Because it's all very well and good getting the likes and the views, but is it in the right place? Is it across the right channels with the right people? And this is where we're referring to in terms of intent data. So intent data can be leveraged from email marketing, can be leveraged from website visits, can be leveraged from downloads, unsubscribes, subscribes, profile visits on your LinkedIn profile, which organizations' news feeds your content has looked through. Many points of data you can now start to leverage to understand where you're landing, who you're talking to, are these the right people, is this the right place? And the reason this is critical is this is the narrative now starting to come through from Forrester. We're moving away from social selling, and it's now dynamic guided selling. It's bringing everything into one place, fundamentally underpinned by data, and then powered by intelligent systems to start to help you guide you to the right thing, the right person, to talk to them at the right time about whatever it is they want. So back to that point around the virtual environment people are now buying. Yes, of course, human beings need to be involved in that, but what your customers want around, or your potential customers want, is a good buying experience. And this is what we can now start to deliver through technology solutions, through content and data to be where your customers are, not where they have been. Again, insights in terms of the types of dashboards that we provide, in terms of what channels are working, what type of reach you get. A technology solution called Shield, which is what I use to understand my data on LinkedIn much more in depth. So we've got different times a day when I post. You can see the darker blues in that quadrant in the middle. That's when I get most engagement. So I now know that what days of the week and what time of day is the best time to post, and you can see the increase of views over time. So again, starting to leverage data to help me make more informed decisions around what I am doing, supported by the technology and the artificial intelligence to help me do this at scale and save time. However, the key thing in all of this, we mustn't get kind of taken away by the by technology, so to speak, is that fundamentally, A, we cannot lose the human touch in all of this, and B, it all boils down to content, irrespective of what organization you are, what industry you are in, what channel you are on. Content in of itself is absolutely critical. So I could create a long form post, I could put it through the generator, but if the content itself isn't interesting, doesn't talk to the right people, doesn't talk to my audience in terms of helping them think differently, all this technology in the world is not necessarily going to support me in terms of that fundamental outcome that I'm trying to achieve, which is generate business conversation, which I can then turn into business opportunity, which I can then turn into money and revenue. And that's fundamentally what we're looking to do in all of this. So with that in mind, I hope that gave you some nice insights and some consideration around what social selling is, the sort of thing, the way that buyers are changing, sneak into the sort of things that artificial intelligence is now providing to help organizations deliver smart messaging at scale, make your content work much harder. Happy to continue the conversation in the virtual booth afterwards, or feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, and we can continue the conversation. But for me, thank you very much for your time and attention today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.